December 1944. Snow fell steadily across the Kansas plains, transforming the sprawling expanse of Camp Concordia into a winter landscape that seemed almost peaceful despite the barbed wire fences that marked its boundaries. Inside the largest German prisoner of war camp in the United States, over 4,000 captured soldiers faced another Christmas far from their homeland. Among them, in a separate section of the camp, were 43 German women, nurses, radio operators, clerks, and auxiliary personnel captured during the final collapse of German resistance in France and Italy. Historical fiction. Disclaimer. This narrative presents an alternative historical scenario. While Camp Concordia was a real facility that housed male German POWs, the presence of German women prisoners represents a fictional adaptation for storytelling purposes. Camp Concordia had risen from the Kansas prairie in 1943, a testament to American industrial efficiency and strategic planning. Constructed in just 90 days at a cost of $1.8 million, the facility sprawled across 640 acres of farmland that had once grown wheat and corn. The camp consisted of more than 300 buildings arranged in precise military order. Wooden barracks painted regulation brown, mess halls capable of feeding thousands, a fully equipped hospital, workshops for various trades, a library stocked with books in multiple languages, recreational facilities, and even its own fire department. The women's section occupied a corner of the camp, separated from the main prisoner population by additional fencing, but sharing the same facilities and policies that governed the entire installation. The 43 women represented a unique challenge for American military authorities, who had developed procedures for managing male prisoners, but found themselves adapting policies for female captives who defied easy categorization. Among these women was Greta Hoffmann, a 26-year-old former Luftwaffe radio operator who had been captured near Cherbourg during the Normandy breakout. Her technical skills had made her valuable to the German war effort, but her capture had thrust her into a situation no amount of military training had prepared her for. Like her male counterparts, she had expected brutal treatment based on years of Nazi propaganda about American cruelty. Beside her in the women's barracks was Anna Richter, a nurse who had served with a field hospital unit in Italy before being captured during the Allied advance on Rome. Her medical training had earned her immediate assignment to the camp hospital, where she worked alongside American medical staff in an arrangement that would have been unthinkable under Nazi ideology. The collaboration challenged everything she had been taught about racial superiority and enemy barbarism. Elisabeth Weber, a former secretary from the German High Command, had been captured in the chaos of the Falaise pocket. Her administrative skills and knowledge of multiple languages made her valuable for camp operations, but her real transformation came through exposure to American democratic principles that contradicted everything she had learned about governance and individual rights. The male prisoners vastly outnumbered the women, creating a complex dynamic within the camp. Many of the men felt protective toward their female compatriots, while others resented their presence as a reminder of Germany's desperate military situation. The American authorities managed these tensions through careful scheduling and supervision, ensuring that interactions remained appropriate while allowing for the social contact that both groups needed for psychological health. Colonel William S. Callan, the camp's commanding officer, understood that he was implementing a carefully crafted policy that extended far beyond simple humanitarian concern. A career military officer with experience in both world wars, Callan had been specifically chosen for his ability to balance security requirements with the strategic goals of prisoner rehabilitation. His orders from Washington were clear: treat all prisoners according to the Geneva Convention while demonstrating American values and abundance. The presence of female prisoners added complexity to this mission. American society in 1944 maintained strict gender roles, and the sight of enemy women in military custody challenged conventional expectations. Local communities initially reacted with suspicion and curiosity, but the women's obvious vulnerability and the professional manner of their treatment gradually won acceptance from nearby Kansas towns. The daily routine established at Concordia reflected this strategic vision while maintaining the security and order necessary for managing thousands of potentially dangerous individuals. Reveille sounded at 6 each morning, not with the harsh brutality of German military discipline, but with the measured professionalism of American military procedure. All prisoners were expected to maintain their quarters, participate in daily inspections, and follow camp regulations, but the enforcement was firm rather than cruel. For the women, breakfast became the first daily demonstration of American abundance. The mess halls served real coffee rather than the ersatz substitutes that had become common in wartime Germany. Fresh bread, eggs prepared in various styles, bacon or sausage, and often fruit created meals that exceeded what many German civilians had eaten even before the war began. Greta Hoffmann found herself unable to finish her portions, overwhelmed by both the quantity and quality of food that seemed impossible given what she knew about wartime rationing. Work assignments followed breakfast, but these too defied prisoner expectations. Rather than the brutal forced labor they had anticipated, prisoners were assigned to tasks that maintained the camp and supported the war effort in ways that complied with international law. The women found themselves in positions that utilized their professional skills. Greta worked with camp communications equipment, Anna assisted in the medical facility, and Elizabeth helped with administrative tasks and translation services. The camp's workshops became centers of activity where German craftsmanship met American materials and organization. Male prisoners repaired clothing and equipment, manufactured items needed for camp operations, and even created artwork and handicrafts during their free time. The women participated in these activities, often bringing different skills and perspectives that enriched the overall program. What struck many prisoners most profoundly was the attitude of their American captors. The guards were predominantly young men from the American Midwest, farmers' sons and small-town boys who had been drafted into military service but retained the straightforward courtesy of their upbringing. They treated the female prisoners with particular respect, maintaining professional boundaries while ensuring their safety and dignity. Sergeant Mike O'Brien from Topeka became something of a legend among all the prisoners for his determined efforts to learn German. His mangled pronunciation of basic phrases provided endless entertainment during work details, but his genuine desire to communicate earned him respect from men and women who had been taught that Americans were culturally inferior. O'Brien would sit with prisoners during rest breaks, sharing photographs of his family farm and asking about life in Germany before the war. The cultural exchange worked both ways. American guards learned German songs and phrases while prisoners absorbed English vocabulary and American idioms. Baseball games between guard units and male prisoner teams became regular entertainment, with German spectators of both genders learning the rules of America's national pastime, while American players marveled at the prisoners' enthusiasm for soccer, which they called football. The camp library emerged as a crucial element in the rehabilitation process. Stocked with books in German, English, and other languages, it provided intellectual stimulation that went far beyond mere entertainment. German classics that had been banned or restricted under Nazi rule sat alongside American literature, scientific texts, and philosophical works that offered prisoners new perspectives on democracy, individual rights, and human dignity. Many prisoners used their time to learn English, recognizing it as a practical skill for whatever future awaited them in a post-war world. The women, with their generally higher education levels, often progressed more quickly in language acquisition and became informal teachers for their male compatriots. Book discussions became common in both the men's and women's sections, with prisoners debating ideas that would have been dangerous to express in wartime Germany. Greta Hoffmann kept a detailed diary throughout her imprisonment at Concordia, writing in careful Gothic script that revealed her evolving thoughts about the war and her captors. Her early entries expressed confusion and disbelief at the treatment she received. She wrote of guards who asked about her family without attempting to extract military intelligence, of medical care provided without regard to her status as an enemy, and of food portions that seemed impossibly generous given what she knew about wartime conditions. Her diary entries provide a unique window into the psychological transformation that many prisoners experienced. Her initial suspicion that American kindness was a sophisticated form of psychological torture gradually gave way to reluctant acceptance that her captors might actually be acting from genuine humanitarian motives. Most disturbing to her worldview was the complete absence of the systematic cruelty she had been taught to expect from democratic societies. Anna Richter's experience in the camp hospital provided a different perspective on American character. Working alongside American medical staff, she observed their treatment of sick and injured prisoners with growing amazement. The American doctors and nurses showed no favoritism based on nationality, treating German patients with the same care they would provide to their own soldiers. This professional dedication to healing regardless of political considerations, challenged her understanding of American priorities and values. Elizabeth Weber's work in camp administration gave her insight into American organizational methods and democratic principles. She observed decision-making processes that included consultation and debate rather than the rigid hierarchy she had known in German institutions. The American officers explained their reasoning for policies and listened to suggestions from subordinates, creating an atmosphere of cooperation that contradicted everything she had learned about American military culture. The transformation was neither immediate nor universal. Many prisoners maintained their ideological convictions despite the evidence of their daily experience. Some attributed American generosity to weakness rather than strength, arguing that only a decadent society would treat its enemies so well. Others suspected elaborate deception, believing that the good treatment was temporary and designed to extract information or cooperation. But for a growing number of prisoners, both male and female, the contrast between Nazi propaganda and American reality created cognitive dissonance that could not be ignored indefinitely. Individuals who had built their identities around the superiority of German culture and the inevitability of German victory found themselves forced to confront evidence that contradicted everything they had believed about their enemies. Dr. James Patterson, the camp's chief medical officer, documented this psychological evolution in his weekly reports to military authorities. A psychiatrist in civilian life, Patterson had volunteered for military service specifically to study the effects of captivity on enemy soldiers. His observations of both male and female prisoners provided valuable insights into the process of ideological change and the factors that made some individuals more susceptible to new ideas than others. Patterson noted that female prisoners often showed different patterns of adaptation than their male counterparts. The women seemed more willing to engage in discussions about political and social issues, perhaps because their roles in German society had already required them to navigate complex hierarchies and expectations. Their responses to American treatment often focused on the contrast with their experiences as women in Nazi Germany, where their value was primarily defined by their reproductive potential and support for male authority. The medical officer also observed that educational background played a significant role in prisoners' ability to process their new experiences. The women, who generally had higher education levels than the average male prisoner, were more likely to engage with the books and ideas available in the camp library. Their discussions often centered on questions of individual rights, democratic governance, and the role of women in society that had been suppressed under Nazi ideology. As autumn turned to winter in 1944, the prisoners had settled into routines that would have been unimaginable during their first days in American custody. They woke to adequate food, spent their days in meaningful work, and retired to heated barracks with clean bedding and recreational activities. The contrast with their expectations was so stark that many wondered if they were experiencing an elaborate form of psychological warfare designed to extract cooperation. The approach of Christmas brought new challenges and opportunities for the camp administration. Colonel Callan had received authorization from Washington to provide special holiday meals for all prisoners, part of the ongoing effort to demonstrate American values and abundance. The decision to serve a traditional American Christmas dinner was both a humanitarian gesture and a calculated psychological operation, designed to showcase the prosperity and generosity that characterized American society. Planning for the Christmas feast began weeks in advance, requiring coordination between military authorities, local suppliers, and volunteer organizations from nearby communities. The camp kitchen, which normally served basic but nutritious meals to thousands of prisoners, was tasked with preparing a dinner that would rival the best holiday celebrations in American homes. The menu was carefully chosen to showcase foods that had been rationed or completely unavailable in Germany for years. Roast turkey, the centerpiece of American Christmas tradition, would be accompanied by traditional stuffing made with bread, herbs, and seasonings. Mashed potatoes, rich with butter and cream, would provide a creamy contrast to the savory turkey. Giblet gravy, cranberry sauce, and pumpkin pie would complete a meal that represented the abundance of American agriculture and the prosperity of American society. The logistics of preparing such a feast for thousands of prisoners required careful planning and substantial resources. Hundreds of turkeys had to be ordered from local farms, transported to the camp, and prepared by kitchen staff working around the clock. Tons of potatoes needed to be peeled, boiled, and mashed. Gallons of gravy required preparation using traditional American recipes that the German cooks had never encountered. The camp's regular kitchen staff was supplemented by volunteers from nearby towns, American women who saw the Christmas dinner as an opportunity to demonstrate Christian charity and American values. These volunteers brought not only additional hands for food preparation, but also a civilian perspective that helped humanize the prisoners in the eyes of the local community. Decorations began appearing throughout the camp in the days before Christmas, transforming the utilitarian military facility into something approaching a festive environment. Pine boughs cut from nearby forests adorned the mess halls, their fresh scent mixing with the aromas of cooking food. Handmade ornaments crafted by prisoners during their free time using materials provided by the camp administration hung from improvised Christmas trees. The sight of German prisoners creating holiday decorations would have been unthinkable just months earlier, but it had become part of the camp's routine. American guards worked alongside prisoners to string lights and arrange greenery, creating an atmosphere of cooperation that transcended the formal boundaries between captors and captives. The women prisoners contributed their own decorative skills, creating delicate paper ornaments and helping to arrange the holiday displays. The prisoners watched these preparations with a mixture of amazement, suspicion, and growing anticipation. Rumors spread through both the men's and women's sections about the planned feast, with speculation ranging from genuine celebration to elaborate propaganda exercise. Some prisoners believed the dinner was designed to be photographed for American publicity purposes, demonstrating humane treatment to international observers. Greta Hoffman's diary entries from this period reveal the internal conflict experienced by many prisoners as Christmas approached. She wrote of wanting to believe in American kindness, while fearing that such belief would constitute a betrayal of her homeland and her fallen comrades. The cognitive dissonance was painful, forcing her to confront the possibility that everything she had believed about the war, about her enemies, and about her own cause might be fundamentally wrong. The psychological tension was heightened by letters from home that painted an increasingly desperate picture of conditions in Germany. Families wrote of bombing raids, food shortages, and the gradual collapse of civilian infrastructure. The contrast between their own improving conditions and the suffering of their loved ones created guilt and confusion that many prisoners struggled to process. December 24th arrived gray and cold, with snow falling steadily across the Kansas plains. The mess halls had been transformed overnight, with tables arranged in a more formal configuration than usual. White sheets served as tablecloths, and each place setting included real china plates rather than the usual metal trays. Candles, carefully supervised for safety, provided warm light that softened the harsh institutional atmosphere of the military facility. The prisoners were called to dinner earlier than usual, told only that there would be a special meal in honor of the holiday. As they filed into the decorated mess halls, moving in the orderly formations that had become second nature during months of military routine, the reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Men and women who had maintained stoic composure throughout the hardships of war and captivity stopped in their tracks at the sight of abundance they had not witnessed since before the conflict began. The tables groaned under the weight of food that seemed impossible in a world of rationing and scarcity. Golden brown turkeys carved and arranged on platters with artistic precision dominated each table like centerpieces in a feast from peacetime memory. Mountains of fluffy mashed potatoes, rich with butter and cream, sat alongside bowls of savory stuffing that filled the air with the scent of herbs and seasonings. Greta Hoffman stood frozen in the doorway of the mess hall, unable to process what she was seeing. The abundance before her contradicted not only her expectations, but her understanding of wartime reality. She had not seen such quantities of food since the early days of the war, when German victories had seemed to promise unlimited prosperity. Anna Richter, standing beside her, whispered in German, "Is this real?" The question carried across the mess hall as other prisoners voiced similar disbelief. American guards, many of them moved by the emotional response of their charges, reassured the prisoners that the feast was indeed intended for them, that this was how Americans celebrated Christmas, extending hospitality even to their enemies. An American guard approached the hesitating women. In broken German learned from months of interaction with the camp's population, he gestured toward the laden tables and said, "Bitte essen Sie." When Greta looked up at him with confusion and asked in halting English, "This "This is for us?" The young American nodded and smiled, saying simply, "Merry Christmas." The question, "This is for us," became the refrain of the evening, repeated in German and broken English as prisoners struggled to comprehend the reality before them. As the prisoners slowly took their seats, the magnitude of the moment became clear to everyone present. This was not merely a meal, but a profound statement about American values and the possibility of human decency, even in the midst of total war. The prisoners ate slowly, savoring flavors they had forgotten existed, and textures that seemed almost luxurious after months of military rations. Many could not finish their portions, overwhelmed by both the richness of the food and the emotional impact of the gesture. Some wept openly, tears mixing with gravy as they struggled to process an act of kindness that challenged everything they had been taught about their enemies. Greta found herself sitting across from Hans Müller, a panzer commander she had met during work details. Their conversation, conducted in whispered German, revealed the profound impact the evening was having on both of them. "How can we explain this to our families?" she asked. "How can we tell them that our enemies treat us better than our own government ever did?" The evening took on an almost surreal quality as the formal barriers between captors and captives dissolved in the warmth of shared humanity. American guards sat with prisoners, attempting conversations in mixed German and English that bridged the linguistic divide through gestures, smiles, and shared laughter. Photographs were passed around tables with soldiers from both sides sharing images of families, homes, and peacetime lives. Someone began humming Stille Nacht, the German version of Silent Night, and the melody was picked up by voices throughout the hall. American guards joined in with the English lyrics they had learned in childhood, creating a harmony that transcended language and nationality. The sound of former enemies singing together about peace and hope filled the Kansas night with something approaching magic. When the evening finally ended, and the prisoners returned to their respective barracks, the impact of the Christmas dinner continued to reverberate through the camp. In the women's section, conversations continued late into the night as Greta, Anna, and Elizabeth tried to make sense of what they had experienced. "Everything we were taught was a lie," Anna whispered in the darkness. "If they can treat us with such kindness, what does that say about everything else we believed?" Greta lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling of her barracks and trying to reconcile the evening's experience with everything she had been taught about the war and her enemies. In her diary, she wrote that the Christmas dinner had forced her to confront the possibility that she had been fighting for the wrong side, that the propaganda that had shaped her understanding of the conflict might have been fundamentally dishonest. The days following Christmas brought a noticeable change in the atmosphere throughout Camp Concordia. Prisoners who had maintained emotional distance from their captors began to engage more openly with American guards. English lessons became more popular, and some prisoners asked to help with camp administration tasks that went beyond their required work assignments. The psychological walls built by years of propaganda were crumbling under the weight of experienced kindness. Individuals who had arrived at the camp as committed Nazis began to question not only their political beliefs, but their understanding of human nature itself. If their enemies could treat them with such consideration, what did that say about the ideology that had taught them to see Americans as subhuman? Letters home took on a different tone as prisoners struggled to convey their changing perceptions to families still living under Nazi rule. The women, with their generally better writing skills, often became the chroniclers of the camp experience, documenting the transformation they were witnessing and experiencing. As winter gave way to spring in 1945, the transformation of the prisoners continued and accelerated. The women had become particularly effective advocates for democratic values, their conversations with male prisoners helping to spread new ideas throughout the camp population. Their presence had added a dimension to the rehabilitation process that military authorities had not anticipated, but came to value highly. The war in Europe was clearly ending, and preparations began for the eventual repatriation of all prisoners to a Germany that would be fundamentally different from the one they had left. For the women, the prospect of returning to a defeated and occupied homeland was particularly complex, as they would face questions about their service and capture that male soldiers would not encounter. Dr. Patterson's final medical reports documented not just the physical health of his patients, but their psychological transformation. The women prisoners had shown remarkable resilience and adaptability, often serving as bridges between different groups within the camp and helping to facilitate the broader process of ideological change. When the last trains carrying repatriated prisoners left Camp Concordia in the summer of 1945, the impact of their experience continued long after the barracks were empty. The women who had experienced American hospitality and democratic values would spend the rest of their lives as living testimonies to the power of humane treatment to transform hearts and minds. Greta Hoffmann returned to a Germany that existed only in ruins, but she carried with her memories of Kansas abundance and American kindness that would shape her perspective for the rest of her life. Her diary, preserved in family archives, provides a unique window into the experience of female prisoners and the power of unexpected compassion to bridge even the deepest divides. The legacy of that December evening in 1944 extends far beyond the individual lives it touched. The demonstration that enemies could be treated with dignity while remaining securely detained became a model for prisoner treatment that influenced international law and military policy. The men and women who experienced abundance in the midst of global scarcity had participated in a moment that helped define American values for generations to come. In the end, the Christmas dinner at Camp Concordia proved that even in the darkest moments of human conflict, the simple act of sharing a meal could bridge the deepest divides. The question, "This is for us," became more than an expression of disbelief. It became a testament to the power of unexpected kindness to transform enemies into friends, one plate of turkey at a time. If this incredible story of humanity triumphing over hatred moved you as much as it did us, please hit that like button to help share these powerful historical moments with others. Your like tells YouTube that real history matters and helps our content reach people who appreciate these untold stories of compassion during wartime. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever encountered stories of unexpected kindness during conflict? Do you think treating prisoners with dignity was an effective strategy? What surprised you most about this Christmas dinner at Camp Concordia? Share your perspective. We read every single comment, and your insights often inspire our future episodes. If you're passionate about discovering the human side of history, especially the remarkable moments that challenge everything we think we know about war and conflict, make sure to subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell. We're constantly uncovering these forgotten stories that reveal the power of compassion, even in humanity's darkest hours. Your subscription directly supports our research into these incredible historical accounts. Plus, subscribers get early access to our upcoming series exploring other extraordinary POW stories from World War II that will completely change how you view wartime treatment and human nature. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history, and we'll see you in the next episode where we uncover another remarkable chapter that deserves to be remembered.